What is good, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about a very important topic for Japan. It's a big problem, it's a big issue for Japan going forward. You might even say it's an existential problem. So I actually have a modest proposal regarding this issue, and that's what I'd like to share today. Let's get into it. Before we get started though, I just want to say, please remind the like button that we are in Japan and need to stay on the left side of the road because the right side would be dangerous. And I want to offer up the subscribe button as a great example of meticulous Japanese engineering. Try it out for yourself. Okay, in all seriousness, I am really close to a milestone, which is 500 subscribers. Only got about 40 more to go, so if you would be so kind, let's make it to that milestone before the end of June. Now, this particular issue is something that is often in the Japanese news. It's talked about a lot in the Japanese political class. It's made the international news a lot, so it's definitely something that has caught the attention of the rest of the world. And that is Japan's famous demographic issue. Japanese aren't having enough babies. The society is graying. There's just not enough young people being born, and of course all the problems that come along with that are things like not enough people to take care of the elderly, not enough people paying into the pension and healthcare schemes to keep them solvent, right? Solvent the right word? Keep them in the black. Now, today I actually have a modest proposal. I believe that Japan is looking at a potential solution that could genuinely work. And no, it's not what you might be thinking. I'm not going to talk about how immigration is the solution, even though I myself am an immigrant. I'm kind of neutral about that whole idea. I'm not sure if it would be good or bad in terms of Japan's long-term future. But I have a different solution, and it has nothing to do with importing people. So, here's what I've got for you today. Japan population is dropping, but let's look more carefully at what is actually happening. Japan's countryside population is dropping, but Tokyo and Yokohama and the other major cities, the population is actually growing. No, it's not because more babies are being made there, quite the opposite actually, but it's that way because more and more people are moving all the time to the greater metropolitan areas, especially Tokyo, Yokohama. Now what that means is the populations there grow while the countryside dies, and you need about 2.1 births for a sustainable population, basically to keep the population steady. And Japan hasn't got that in the cities. If you look at places like Tokyo, it's something like 1.4. Most people are having one kid and that's it. And the reasons should be relatively obvious. There's a severe lack of space in Tokyo. Raising 3 children in a house in the countryside is going to be a lot easier space-wise than even 2 children in a Tokyo-sized apartment. It's more expensive in Tokyo to raise children. Just living expenses in general are higher than the countryside, but then add in education costs, daycares, the education inflation that happens in Tokyo because the competition to get into good schools is really fierce, so people are paying for expensive cram schools and they're paying for expensive tutoring and all that kind of stuff. So you don't really have that same issue out in the countryside. And so raising children in Tokyo is hard. I'm not saying Tokyo is a bad place to raise kids, but it's just more difficult to raise many kids. So what about the countryside? Well, actually the birth rate out there is just fine, thank you. It is actually at or very close to sustainable rates. And that means that if more people could stay in the countryside rather than move to the city, Japan's population issue might be alleviated to some extent. Maybe not fixed entirely, but it would go a long way to making it better. So why are young people all moving to Tokyo and the other metropolitan areas? It's quite simple. Jobs, careers, all of the big companies are there. So what I'm really proposing is a decentralization of Tokyo and making it less important and less a catch-all for all businesses and headquarters of businesses. I mean, at the very least, with Corona and the whole Zoom and teleconferencing era, we've seen that you can, if not move your business entirely out of the city, you should be able to make satellite companies or groups outside of the city, and with teleconferencing, it's perfectly possible to keep everyone in touch. I think what needs to happen is the government should take a carrot and stick approach, encourage businesses to leave Tokyo, encourage businesses with subsidies, tax breaks, cheaper land grants, all those sorts of things to make them move out of Tokyo and out into the countryside. And then with some stick policies or punishment policies, the companies that remain have to pay some higher taxes, they get less in subsidies, basically. Like maybe politicians can start giving the business owners dirty looks when they meet at dinner parties or something. I don't know. But basically with that carrot and stick approach, let's get more companies out into the countryside, because I've talked to countless students who have told me that they would love to return to their hometown or return to the countryside when they graduate. And I asked them, well, where are you going to live? And they say, well, yeah, I'm going to stay in Yokohama, or I'm going to move up to Tokyo. Because that's where the jobs are. That's where the companies are. They don't want to move back to the countryside where it's really tiny mom and pop companies or farming. Now, the government has already tried a few policies, but it's been targeted at individuals, trying to get individuals to move out by giving, really inexpensive land or even cash payouts for people who move to their town. But let's be honest, 1 or 2 time cash payout versus a well-paying job, it's not going to lure that many people out. You need to put the jobs out there, and then the individuals will come. You might ask, are there any examples of this actually happening? Yes, in fact, there are. There is a corporation out where I used to live in the countryside. I used to live in a town of 50,000 people, and there was a village next to it with about, 5,000-6,000. It was really tiny. And that village is called Oshino. Oshino is home to the Fanuc Corporation. And they have a lovely campus. It's at the foot of Mount Fuji. And they have basically green space, good access to education. They have wonderful family living facilities, and for the most part, I understand people are pretty happy to be working there. It is a genuine corporation that has set up and is very successful, and the people who live and work out there for Fanuc seem to be pretty happy with their situation. We just need more companies like this. We need more companies to take that initiative, or the government to say, hey, look, this lack of birth issue is obviously a major thing, and people seem to be having babies in the countryside but not in the city, so let's just try to get more families out to the countryside. It seems like a no-brainer, and even a win-win situation if you think about the advantage of decentralizing Tokyo in other ways, like natural disasters. If there's a giant earthquake or tsunami that hits the capital, and every major corporation and business is really headquartered there, recovery is going to be a hell of a lot harder, clearly. So if more companies moved out, or at least had satellite areas where people who wanted to live in the countryside could go and live rather than be in Tokyo, it would be a wonderful option, and I think it would be a great thing for Japan to have. And again, something that doesn't involve importing people or even really doing something radically different. It's more like a return to how things were than anything else. So, I don't know. It's just something to think about. It's my personal opinion. about something that could really be done to help the situation. Let me know what you think. Does this sound crazy? Does this sound doable? Does it sound doable but they'll never do it? Well, we shall see. But it's my modest proposal, and I want to thank you very much for watching this video. Remember, left side, just like the traffic here, smash that like button to let it know what it's about, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you've made it this far in the video, you must have enjoyed something, so it'd be cool if you'd subscribe and see more of my content. Thank you for watching this one, and I will catch you next week.